There is such yearning to be, to know this state of oneness, of realization, of enlightenment. And sometimes people use psychedelics in order to get a glimpse or to try to reach this state. So what is the difference between a glimpse or just being in this state through using psychedelics and what I refer to as a true glimpse, a natural glimpse, a glimpse that comes from within the character or in an act of grace? And there is a distinct difference between an induced experience and a natural experience. The state of enlightenment or self-realization is a very ecstatic state. This is an ecstasy moving around. So you can imagine the most powerful drugs you can take, or psychedelics, or mind shapers or changers, materials that has changed the brain in such a way that it sees everything in a very, very different way than what a sober or a regular person who is walking through his life without taking anything will experience as reality. An ecstatic state, and yet it's like restrained through the character. This ecstasy expresses itself in the most logical way possible according to the circumstances in which it works or creates or interacts. Now I'm talking to a camera, so the character uses this tone and she will not engage in any ecstatic movement or, you know, just diving into this bliss, because this is not what the moment is about. This is what this moment is about. So this ecstasy is very flexible, and it's not a needy ecstasy. It doesn't want to last. It doesn't care if it lasts. It's not an experience you have to take in and you wish it will never end, but this is the state, so you cannot waste it. Anything you do in this state, the character does in this state, is ecstasy, is bliss. And the most powerful things you can do under the influence of psychedelics experiences are the same as just sitting and drinking coffee or cleaning the house. This is a paradox because psychedelics usually take us out of reality and shows us beyond. And this is the beyond, being inside the reality and acting in the most regular way, boring way. So it looks very boring, and it looks, the appearance of it looks so mundane, but the experience of the thing itself is highly, highly ecstatic and highly psychedelic. The shapes of everything around the character in this state are new. Every moment they are new. The words, everything is a wonder, a constant wonder. It's never boring. No one can be bored. And yet it is so plain. It's so, so plain. The character Simcha has never tried or used psychedelics. The only thing she did try is weed when she was in her 20s, and it made her be so anxious. She had anxiety. Severe anxiety was caused through this use of materials, and she decided not to touch these things again because it's not healthy for her mind. It completely took her out of balance, and it was a very simple material, like substance for the body. So she understood that if she will take stronger things, or she decided not to use psychedelics. And so when she's talking about psychedelics, it's not from the direct experience of the character. It's only by the descriptions of what she has heard about this thing, and her knowledge about the realness of the experience of what is seen through the psychedelics, and seeing if it matches. So it was interesting for the character after the shift to try to realize the connection between the psychedelics and the state. Is it really a glimpse into the state? Is it really touching this thing? It's like being drawn into this other dimension and realizing everything, and then it throws you back. This is the experience she has heard. Maybe it lasts for a few minutes, maybe it can last for hours or weeks. I don't know, depends on what the substance is. So she doesn't know much about all the different substances and psychedelics that are available for the mind to experience its enormity, because the brain only shows a very narrow of the possibilities of what this reality is, a very, very narrow prospect of it. So it's very confined, and using psychedelics surely opens the possibility for the character to realize that there is something other than this plain appearance of a world. So these experiences, these unique, beautiful experiences of oneness with everything and becoming everything, and this sensation of not having a body, or fantastic descriptions of liquid materials. Everything is so alive, and everything is so new to the character, because it takes it out of its box, of its confinement, of its prison. But it doesn't. Psychedelics are a stroll in the yard of the prison. You are in prison, the character's prison. This is a very safe place that the character is in. This is the ground it walks on. This is its place. And using psychedelics, it's like the warden is coming, and he opens your cell door, and you get out of this small room, and you go out and you go to the yard. And in the yard, oh, it is amazing. It's not a small room. It's so vast, and you realize you were never the small room that you were in. There are other places, like this beautiful yard. Maybe there is a flower in the yard and you have never seen a flower. So this is a whole new experience for you. The mind that is used to this small cell is being released to a bigger place. But this yard is also inside prison. The yard you go to from your prison by using psychedelics is not freedom. It's not touching the very essence of what is. It is not. It is only an extension of what your mind is capable of as character, and our minds are capable of wondrous things as characters, wonderful experiences, deep experiences, amazingly, fantastically experiences, but you are not a free person. It is not realizing that the jail itself does not exist, the yard does not exist, and you were never a character in this prison of a character. It's only what the character is capable of. The character is capable of being oneness. Okay, I'm oneness. Now I know that. Now I know that I am one with everything. It is an amazing sensation, and I've heard descriptions of it. And it would be this sensation, and it can only be this sensation when you are this thing itself. And when you are oneness, you can never go back to being a separate thing. You can never make the transition backwards. You run over the bridge and the bridge is burning. The bridge is burnt. You have no place to return. It's the same distance that you tried to pass. You managed to do that. You became this thing, and now you can never go back to being what you thought you were. So, even if you have very strong induced by psychedelics experience, not strong, life-changing, uncomprehendable, you know, you lost everything, you lost the ability to assess time, or you realize there is no time and you are not you, and every law of this existence as you knew it is cancelled. Even then, you are not released from your character. It is always the character that is having this experience, because it is an experience. And as long as it is an experience, it is not freedom. This thing is not an experience. It is not an enlightenment experience or self-realization experience. It is an expression of an idea. The expression has no ability to experience. How can an expression experience? It is a metaphor. It does not experience, it expresses without purpose, without meaning, without anything. This is it. So as long as the psychedelics take you to a journey and then brings you back into your cell, and you return to your cell and you say, wow, now I know that there is something there, and I will try to do that again, and I will try to reach this yard, and this yard is amazing, and I want to go there. This is not what is. This is not the realization that there is no prison, that there is no cell, no one in the cell. You are free. This is the realization, this is what is. And psychedelics and trips and LSD and MD and I don't know the names of these things always brings you back to your cell, to your character. Maybe you are different, maybe you are more optimistic, maybe your horizons are so wide, and maybe you have a certain drive to be free. But as long as you return to yourself, no matter how changed you are, this is not the thing, because you only saw the yard. If you had been the thing itself, you could not go back to the cell. There would be no one to go back into the cell in the prison. So what I'm trying to say is that though psychedelics are extremely interesting and I am not a doctor or a psychologist or a psychiatrist or anything that I can recommend people to do or not to do this thing. Each person should decide for himself how much power he has, what can this thing do for him, if it is a good thing for him, if it's not, it's up to you, this is your life. The character Simcha decided it was not for her, fragile character, and then she didn't do that. Maybe it was a mistake. She could have experienced in this, I don't know. It is irrelevant because it's only this experience, and there's everything that is an experience. It's not truth. It's not the truth. It's not it. So you can play with it, you can enjoy it, you can taste the yard, taste the place, that it is not the immediate brain, how it perceives things, the elements of time and space. Maybe realize what God is through these psychedelics and these journeys inside, and reach psychological conclusions about yourself as a character, about your childhood and your problem. I don't know. I know that there are many uses for psychedelics. In Hebrew we say katonti. I am this small to speak about this vast subject. But the only thing this appearance of a person can say that the experience that are induced by psychedelics are not a glimpse into this state. A true glimpse. A true glimpse is something else. And a true glimpse is a natural detachment from the character that occurs naturally, unexpectedly, to someone who didn't plan or wanted it to happen to him. This is grace. The character Simcha, prior to this becoming an expression or an idea, had two glimpses into this all-nothingness. They were years before the shift. They were so plain and normal in the way that reality hasn't changed. The world around her hasn't changed in a psychedelic kind of way. It wasn't warped. It wasn't unfamiliar. It was what it was. Things around her looked the same. The first one was also while she was driving in a car. She was driving through great fields of wheat. There were just endless road inside fields of wheat in Spain. Her husband was sitting next to her, and the baby was sleeping in the back. And there was a song on the radio. It was a very old song. It was called Ecstasy, Extano. It's like a techno hit. And she knew that song, but the music became something else. As she was driving, this thing has started to occur in this movement of the car and her, and quietness has started to land and wrap her. The exact thing that happened in the shift itself. And it was so powerful, but so natural, and she continued to drive. And it was very dramatic. And then her husband remarked something about the car or the child, and it stopped. And she looked at this thing. It was very, very powerful and meaningless. because she didn't feel one with everything, or she didn't feel extreme kind of love or something. It was the same scenery, movement, but she was becoming the song in the radio. She was the deepening of the understanding that this is not a voice that's coming from somewhere, and there is no distance between the voice and the one that is driving and everything, and quietness. It was the same thing, but it couldn't last. The second one was when she was playing tennis with her twin brother, just playing around, nothing serious. And there was a bird that flying above their heads, and she looked at the bird, and this same quietness came over her, and she knew she was the bird. And she thought, and her brother was saying, "Come on, are you playing?" And she said, "Yes." And she said, the character said, "Okay, this is great. I'll think about this in the evening, and I'll understand what it means, and I'll recreate this wonderful knowing." And of course, in the evening, she couldn't grasp it again. So these were two glimpses, very natural, very unexpected, very simple examples about how grace has tried to connect itself and to become what she was. And if she's using the metaphor of the prison, it was not that the warden came and opened the door, it's that the walls around her just like was beginning to break. She realized that the walls are not walls. These are not the prison walls. Something is different with the walls. So these kinds of glimpses, she concluded as a character that they are a very good sign, because the actual act of becoming this thing was very similar to the glimpses that the character had. It was like she has that inside her abilities as a character. Becoming this thing was, of course, it happened in the right time, when it was written, prearranged by her, this great cosmic plan, and it has happened. And so the conditions for the character to do that were perfect. She was alone. No one could interrupt this process, and also she had all the experience she has gained ever since these experiences, glimpses. Maybe she was too young when she was in her 20s to experience life as an expression. Maybe she had to experience life as a character and experience childbirth and death of loved ones, of parents, as a character and not as this indifferent experience, loving, compassionate, indifferent experience. So this is my knowledge, Simcha's ability to say something about psychedelics and true glimpses. They are not the same. A true glimpse transforms you in a way, in a very subtle way. It was for the character. She didn't pay much attention to these experiences, to these glimpses. She didn't think that they were so important, but she knew that this is something else. But they were so natural and connected to reality. Not spiritual, not beyond the world, like something inside the world was quiet. And psychedelics are quite the opposite. They test the boundaries. They test the limitations of the mind, but they always test the limitations of the mind. They never go out of the mind. This true glimpse is just being this thing. It's the difference between thinking about something and this automatic expression that does not think, that does not see thoughts as thoughts. Ooh. People use psychedelics and it helps them evolve in some way and expand and experience more love. Maybe it heals them. This is a science I know nothing about. I think that each and everyone should think for himself, research this thing and decide for himself what kind of experiences he wants. Never taking anything for granted, not what other people say, just look and see for yourself if it's the right thing for you. But as always, Simcha recommends that the goal is to set yourself free completely, not just go to the yard of the prison, just break all the walls and realize that you are not inside. This is the realization. This is what really truly happens. So, induced experiences don't have the same value. Many psychedelically induced experiences are not equal to a split second of a realization of a true glimpse that happens spontaneously and naturally and unexpectedly to a character. So a true glimpse is an act of grace. It is natural. It is spontaneous and unexpected. It is simple. It is within the borders of known reality. Just, you know that you are something different. You start to feel the vibe of it, to realize that may it happen to you. And when it happens to you, may this glimpse becomes the expression itself, and may you be free.